the president of Top Rank Boxing, is Todd DuBoef. I've never had the opportunity to speak to him on the program, and so that's why I'm very excited to do so right here and now. Let us welcome Mr. Todd DuBoef. There he is. Hello, Todd. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me, man. I remember that Yankee Stadium thing like it was yesterday. I can't believe it was 209.
Crazy, right? That was a huge, I mean, I was just a kid, fresh faced, and he goes on this tangent about the sport because if you recall, you guys were going head to head, or the UFC was going head to head with you that night, and I don't think he liked it very much, and so he went on this thing that exploded. No one really knew who I was, and then he gives me that, and everyone's hitting me up. So, yeah, it was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I think I was that, and I don't remember. Was that when they launched their Fox deal?
No, it was
And were
before
they
that. It was before
all
they were
right?
still that was still the Spike TV days.
The Spike TV days. Okay. Yeah, but I remember like, and Bob was riffing and he was
Yes.
going on, and you were sitting there just, I mean, it was, I mean, it was one of those tornado bobs that you couldn't stop either. He was
Yes.
just going.
And that's why we love him. But it's interesting because you congratulations on the Fight Life, the 5-part series on ESPN Plus, fantastic, riveting stuff. Shades of Drive to Survive and
Right.
the golf program that we've seen on Netflix as well, and
Full swing.
Full
Full swing.
Swing,
Yeah.
yes. And full disclosure, I'm very good friends with Aaron Cohen, a mentor of mine, who helped work on the show for Words and Pictures, which is headed up by the former ESPN executive Connor Schell. It's a great look at the sport of boxing, not like the typical all-access 24/7 stuff that we've seen over the past decade, the likes of Naoya Inoue and Tyson Fury. And there's the poster right over there. 5 great episodes, and I believe more are coming in 2025. And part of what I like so much about it is I love the fight business. I love talking to
Right.
promoters. I love talking to the people behind the scenes, managers, etc. And you're very present throughout. And I have felt, correct me if I'm wrong, that throughout your career, you have tried to not be as present as your typical promoter. And obviously Bob is doing his thing, and so it's good to have one message coming from one person. But it feels like you're now taking that step to be more out there as the face of Top Rank. Is that a conscious decision that you feel like right now that has to be done?
I think very much so a conscious decision. I think a lot of it is I think I learned so much from Bob, and he was an incredible mentor, an incredible teacher. He was a visionary. I mean, we start talking about these crazy one-off things, and this guy was doing the evil Knievel Snake River jump. So, I mean, how could you not love that kind of stuff? And he taught me so much, and I also felt like there was a lot to learn. And during that learning process, I felt like, hey, maybe is he going to give me the rope? Is he going to let me go do some strategical moves? Let me start to forge new relationships, right? To advocate on the behalf of the sport and how great it is. And he did. And that was the path that he allowed me to do. And I kind of said, give him his milk box, give him the press, let him go, chirp all he wants. And I think it worked really well. And I think recently, when we did the Fight Life, and I went to pitch it to your good friend Aaron Cohn. He's like, I've been waiting for 20 years for this show.
Huh.
This is dead on. And him and Connor said to me, you have to take a front stage. You have to be part of the show. We want to see the sausage making. We want to see behind the scenes. And I think it was a conscious effort. I was ready. Bob loves going to the shows. He loves showing up everywhere. But I think it also was a good compliment to how we worked with each other on him being the voice and me kind of working with him and our team in strategy.
Are you comfortable in that spot? Are you comfortable being the guy up at the dais saying Saturday night you need to watch, getting into these verbal sparrings with other promoters and fight? Like, do you want that in your life?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I've always felt like I think that there's something authentic about it when it's real and you feel it and you're passionate. I think there's a lot of nonsense to it as well, right? And I think like we're seeing right now in a presidential debate, when people start name calling, it's kind of frivolous and useless, and you don't go anywhere. So I think at times it works well, and I think there's a place for it. So I think I'm comfortable with it. I think I'm not going to go out and say something I don't believe in. But that's part of sometimes the promoters. They like to just throw a lot of crap out there.
Can you explain? Like sometimes I'm blown away. I see Bob in Japan, and then I see him in Riyadh, and then I see him in the UK. How is he doing this at 92? And is there ever a point? And I don't even know if this would be well received, where you tell him like, can you just chill? Like you don't need to be at all these events anymore. You're 92. Just enjoy your life at this point.
Well, I think this is his fire. It's his candle. It's his wick. And this keeps him going. And he looks forward to these moments, to these events, to go and travel, and it's a destination place for him. And it keeps him exercising his brain that he's working and he loves it. And you never want to take somebody's, passion away and their soul away. And the sport of boxing is his soul and his passion. And as much as we warn him, like, hey, this is not going to be a great experience. There's not a first class hotel. There's not much luxury here. I don't care. I'm going. Let's go. That's how he does it.
I love that. That's incredible. Can I ask? You're 20 something years old. I believe he gets married to your mother, right? He's your stepfather. You're working in real estate, and his biological children aren't that interested in the fight business, and he proposes to you to come check out the fight game and Top Rank and see if you're interested in it, and you take the leap. You're 20. Why not? Let's go check this out. Initially, did you think, okay, I got it. This is my career path. This is what I'm going to do? Or was it like, man, I don't know, working with my stepdad, he's a bombastic guy, he's a colorful guy. I don't know if this is going to work out. This is probably going to be more detrimental than fun for me. What were your early impressions early on? And did I get that timeline correct?
Yeah, I think you got it pretty good. It was in 93. I was working in New York at the time, and I had a lot of experience being around media at the time. I went to school with Jerry Levin, who was the ex-CEO of Time Warner. His son Jake Levin and I were very close, and I spent a lot of time with Jerry Levin. So I kind of was enamored with media, and simultaneously, I talk about this quite a bit. Is Las Vegas? Las Vegas, its identity was so lost early on as a kid when I was growing up, but its identity kind of was Sin City, gambling town, all that kind of stuff. But really, what happened were prize fights and the Runnin' Rebels came to the forefront.
Hmm.
So sport kind of like stuck together. I don't believe I really knew the real Bob until I started on the job and what he was. I read articles about him. You may have seen it. He was always very cordial with me, very sweet. And my mother and him were dating for quite some time, so I got the experience. But it was pretty funny that the first day on the job, I was back in Las Vegas, sitting in front of the Nevada Athletic Commission for Bob having a disciplinary hearing for calling Elias Ghanem a schmuck. So that should have probably taught me something about what that trajectory would look like in the sport and where the job I was.
By the way, what did your mom think early on? Like, was she in favor of you doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were both really tentative. I said, listen, I think, remember, like, yeah, I'm 26 years old, and it's like I want to learn something. I'll get exposed to something. And, we had just signed Oscar in 92. A lot of the guys were young. James Toney and I would hang out and play basketball. George Foreman was more of Bob's peer. And I think he needed somebody young to be around and just to look at the landscape of the sport and everything. I mean, we had no computers in the office. When I wanted to go put computers in, his secretary was about to have me thrown out, lynched. She wanted to still just stay on a typewriter. You're not taking my typewriter. She's holding on for dear life. So I think there were a lot of things that we had to do. I think the best thing about it was, I learned, I paved my own way. We communicated, we fought, we pulled, we tugged, we this. I always say, like, I was Harvey Keitel in The Wolf of Wall Street. He would offend somebody and I'd have to go clean it up every day. And I kind of dealt with that. But, I really like the place we're at. And if it wasn't for him giving me and giving the team that we've put together the rope and the ability to go grow, I think we really were able to grow something terrific for the sport of boxing, both domestically and globally.
Fascinating time right now in the sport. You talk about the landscape. It hasn't been this interesting, in my opinion, in quite some time. And obviously, everything going on in Saudi Arabia definitely helps in that regard. Could I ask your opinion? The current landscape, the state of boxing, as ESPN calls it, their program that they do. How do you feel about the current state of the sport?
I think the current state of the sport is terrific. I think I think what we're dealing with, and I think technology has helped a lot with, is the world is getting flat. We're getting more access to the international guys, and we notice that there's all these events going on. And that was the inception of like when we went from, being behind a paywall at HBO to ESPN to wherever the next chapter may be. It's like we all are looking at something that is so global and so relevant. And one of the beauties about this sport is it has a foundation that goes back hundreds of years, 100 years plus. And you're looking at the Olympics, and the Olympics are the beginning of the sport. And I talk about it all the time. In all sports, people go to the Olympics as the pinnacle, but in boxing, it's the beginning. And when you have countries that are fostering great amateur programs and developing young fighters, it seems so evergreen. And I think there's an endless opportunity. And I think we're being able to get exposed to so much more. I'd like to see personally a little bit more of the heavyweight division coming back through America. I think we've lost a bit of that. And I think a lot of that is obviously the just meteoric rise of all the other sports where these guys are going into football, basketball, baseball, and the massive amount of money being thrown at it.
And so, you mentioned growing up in Vegas, Vegas fight capital of the world. Now, we had Frank Warren on an hour or so ago, and he said Riyadh is the fight capital of the world. And it's hard to argue considering the events that are going on there. How would you describe your relationship, Top Rank's relationship with Turkey Al Sheikh and the Riyadh season crew?
I mean, I think what he's doing is I think they're doing a very good job at, you know, making Riyadh the like Vegas of yesteryear, right? Taking that playbook, finding great events. If it was Formula One, WWE, using boxing, saying, "Hey, we offer all these great events," and being able to offer, fighters from all over the world to come there and fans from all over the world to come there. So I think that's what you're seeing. And I think that's healthy. I think that's a good thing for them to develop. And I think it's a good thing for to have another hub like Las Vegas, like Los Angeles, like New York, like London, like Japan. It's good to have a nice home in the Middle East.
So you mentioned the state of the American heavyweight right now, and then I obviously bring up Riyadh. And Bob was critical of Jared Anderson's decision to take the fight in August. And I know that wasn't necessarily under the Top Rank umbrella. And that leads me to wonder, I saw the photo of Turkey and Naoya Inoue. How does that work? You're building up guys, you have a plan for someone, and then here comes, a lot of money, and now maybe it's not the fight that your matchmakers would have put him in. And here's a guy that you've just invested a lot of time and effort into, and he takes a fight against someone who he's maybe not ready to fight. And all of a sudden those plans have blown up, and now you have to deal with the aftermath. And so how do you deal with that now with all this money being thrown at these guys?
I don't know. I mean, I would hope that it's complementary, right? I think this is a ambassador role that they have. I think in Inoue's situation, the the discrepancy between what he would make at home and what he would make elsewhere is not that significant. And we obviously don't know. I'd love to take him to America, but I don't really necessarily think that, it's one or the other. You would hope that it's complementary, right? That using being a part of Riyadh season at some point during the year is not the only time that you're going to be fighting, but you're going to be fighting, at home twice a year. And then maybe if they pull that lucky straw and you get a great fight and you can do a big event there where they're throwing a lot of money, I think it works very complementary.
And so with Jared, is there a plan now to get him back on track?
Listen, there's always a plan for us, but there's really, when you start asking about athletes and fighters, it's them to give us the plan to a certain extent. It's like, hey, look in the mirror. Where are you at your career? Right. And I kind of made this comparison with Jared. It's like, listen, people talk about like, nursing a fighter or whatever, or bringing them along too slowly. I wish we had more guys like Lomachenko and Inoue that could be fast tracked right away and transition from amateurs to pros. But we don't have that. We don't have scholastic boxing. So I think you have to take your time. And our matchmakers would have probably said, you know, the Piccoli fight was fine maybe in a year. He needed more rounds. He needed more experience. And I've discussed how it's like climbing Everest, right? You acclimatize at the different levels, and that's what he needed to do was acclimatize. No difference when Mayweather fights, Tony Pep before he fights Gennaro Hernandez, who's a tall, lanky guy who's a great boxer. He needed that fight before he got to the one fight. So I think Jared has to look in the mirror, has to decide if he's ready, what he wants to do, and how aggressively he wants to do to come back, and who's in his corner.
I know Inoue is coming back in December, around Christmas time. Given the relationship with Turkey, and also hearing in the past you guys wanting to bring him to the United States, I know Dodger Stadium was thrown out. That would be incredible. Is there a greater chance outside of Japan, his next fight being in Saudi Arabia or the United States, which has the better shot?
I don't know. I think as Wolf Blitzer would say on election day, too early to tell, right? It's a perfect one, right? This is Wolf Blitzer day, right? Too early to tell. I would hope we could get him to the States. I think that would be an important place for him. I think I think the Otani phenomenon he could draft off of wonderfully here. I think people see that in him. I think to me, I always say he's the best fighter I've seen since 1993 because of just stylistically his aggressive nature, fast twitch, power in both hands. I love watching him fight, and to watch him just take people out is so exciting. It's great for the sport.
In my opinion, Top Rank, and this is not a hot take, it is the American boxing promotion. There's no one that comes close to you guys, and you do a great job of developing American talent in particular. Keyshawn Davis at the top of that list, the Olympic silver medalist, coming home on Friday to Norfolk, Virginia. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was he the one that told you guys, like, bring the show to Virginia, bring it to Norfolk, I will sell it out for you guys, and then he sold it out like in minutes, if not hours?
Yeah, he has this swagger that's amazing, and sometimes you talk about keeping the reins on the thoroughbred and pull him back or not. He said, I want this. I want Lemos. He's tough. He got robbed against a Richardson Hitchens in fight, which he lost a unanimous decision, which most people thought he won. He was formerly ranked number one, and he had said to us, "I want to go home. I want to go home." And we balance that a lot because we're big at homecomings, right? We're big at taking Floyd to Grand Rapids. We're big at Tapia and Romero, both in Albuquerque, especially smaller level towns. And we wanted to do it, but we wanted to do it when he would be the main event. And as soon as we did this thing just took off like a rocket, and we love it. We absolutely love it. He's been terrific. He's been terrific out there promoting, and he's got a real tough fight. And I think he's knocking on the door for a title, very early in 2025.
And his brother, Keon, also on the card as well. So it's a family affair.
Yes, absolutely. We got the DB3 crew. You can't miss it. I told him, Keyshawn, this is like the Jackson 5. It's like, do we get Michael Jackson ever? Or is it the Jackson 5? Which one are we going?
Speaking of ESPN Plus, the Fight Life, the event this Friday, your deal is coming up with ESPN. I believe, does it come to an end in August of 2025?
It comes to in the midsummer of 2025. Obviously, I'm not going to comment on our active conversations, but we're out there talking to everybody. We're actually love our partnership with ESPN. It's so interesting because we've seen the deck change so much with the other sports, and I think it's been wonderful to watch. If it's the NBA going to 3 media partners, the NFL's at 5. I mean, it is amazing. And then also looking at the perspective between legacy media and technology companies. And even compounding that is, are you only looking at domestic rights or are you looking at global rights? So I think all of these things are on the table. And we have a wonderful team that works side by side with myself and Bob and our team in doing this. And we're really excited about what this next chapter looks like.
Are you at this point, is the window open where you can start speaking to other people?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, it is.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. So when do you think, we just saw, the Queensberry DAZN deal get announced, and that starts in April. So what are we, like 5 months out? When do you think we might hear where you'll end up post this deal?
I don't know. I don't want a clock on us, right? I really want to make sure we make the right decisions. And we have a team, the agents at CAA that do our media rights are terrific at it. And that we come up with a really good strategy at looking like what's the best platform for it. Obviously, DAZN in the UK has done just locking up George and Frank Warren was great. They did a great job with Eddie Hearn or Leon. They have really robust international markets in Germany where they have primary soccer rights. So I think we have to look at everybody, and I think this is an exciting time. And so I'm not sure exactly on the timing, but we want to make sure we're not going to be rushed on the timing. We want to make sure we have the right partners in place, and we look forward to it.
I appreciate that you can't talk too much about it, but just one follow-up if I can. I do see some people kind of dismissing that ESPN's going to get out of the boxing business. Is that inaccurate? Are you actively speaking to them? Are they a player in this?
We're actually having conversations with ESPN as well. We're having conversations with everybody. And if ESPN, we've had a great relationship with them. What it looks like after we go out into the marketplace and start talking to them and talking to the other players, we'll see if there's a place for them in our content stack. Obviously, we love the guys there have been longtime relationships with myself, even before it was they were even at ESPN. So I really value them.
Next weekend, we're going to see Netflix get into the boxing business. How do you feel about this event that they're putting on in Texas, Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson?
I feel like this is right up Aram's alley with Evel Knievel.
Yeah, that's right.
I think this is like dead on Evel Knievel. I'm like, Bob, this is your wheelhouse. This is where you would have been. You had Hell's Angels running security for you. I don't know what to do with it. I caution myself. I don't look at it as boxing. I look at them just using the boxing ring as a format. But I would say I really like it that boxing's going to go to the forefront, and this is a big platform, Netflix, with 260 or 70 million households. And I think globally, I think I really just hope that Tyson is okay health-wise, and even though they've modified the rules so much with size of gloves, distance of the rounds, distance of time of rounds. It is what it is, and I don't really take it that seriously, but I think it's a good outlier for them just to dip their toe in.
The co-main event is Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. They've got some work to do.
Love that fight.
It's a tremendous fight, and the first fight was amazing at Madison Square Garden. They've got some work to do as far as best female fight of the year, because just about a month ago here in New York, we had Sandy Ryan and Michaela Mayer, and that to me is at the front of the list as far as best women's boxing matches of the year. There was some wackiness that happened on the streets of New York prior. Has Top Rank figured out who threw the paint on Sandy Ryan, how this all happened? Because, I'm sure you've seen it all or thought you saw it all leading up to that night, and then all of a sudden we see a drive-by with a can of paint.
Well, all I can say to you is that, this is all part of Fight Life. We have Fight Life there.
Oh, is that going to be in season 2?
Yes.
Wow. That's a good plug.
It's amazing. I mean, to think that you would have thought that Aaron Cohen brought a paint can.
That's incredible. There it is.
They had this whole thing set up just to add to it, right? No, they didn't. It was amazing that this whole experience. And then there's some banter that we caught with the fight with Words and Pictures crew in the locker room with Sandy Ryan's corner, like saying, you can't go fight. You're not fighting. So I think this is going to be all chronicled terrifically in season 2 of Fight Life.
Okay. When does season 2 premiere? Could I ask that?
That's a good question. We're in the process of shooting 5 episodes. So we'll be in Norfolk this weekend. It'll probably be sometime in the next, 8 months. We still are editing, but we're still shooting.
Okay.
This is the excitement of it.
So wait a second. If you say 8 months, which platform will that air on?
That's a good question.
Oh, okay. All right. I was trying to. That's interesting. Okay, that could be a big part of the piece. There was a rumor around a year or so ago that came out saying that TKO was going to buy Top Rank. I'm sure you saw this, TKO with UFC and WWE. It just seems obvious that boxing would be a part of the portfolio. Nick Khan, who you mentioned, longtime boxing guy, who's the president of WWE. Was there any truth to this? Was there any discussion about this at all?
No, I mean, we get overtures all the time, right? And I think what we saw in professional sports were like, hey, oh, here's a sports category, global, robust, big library, CEO or founder of the company, 90 plus years, what would there be? There was really nothing substantive with us, with anyone. I think, at some point, probably 5 years ago, we had some discussions, maybe bringing in a strategic as some estate planning for Bob, but there has never really been anything substantive at all. I
Okay.
think the rumor mill is great to throw around. I think people love to say that, to talk about stuff, and I think it, to a certain extent, I know those guys really well. Nick at the WWE, and obviously the team at UFC, known for most of my whole life, and their Vegas base. So we talk regularly or occasionally, and they're good guys.
Speaking of the UFC, I'd be remiss if I don't ask you about Dana White, who has long been a rival of Bob's, and it is a little bizarre at his age still seeing the barbs being thrown his way. It is amazing to learn that Lawrence Epstein, who is their COO, was the best man at your wedding, and so you have a close personal relationship with him, with Hunter Campbell, whose father was the lawyer of Top Rank in the UFC for many years, and now he's so instrumental in their operations. And yet, for some reason, you would think two Vegas guys, you'd be friends, but even as recently as a couple of months ago, there's still shots being taken. I think he wanted to bring his boxing event to ESPN Plus, and he accused you guys of blocking that from happening with Callum Walsh. Why do you and Dana not seem to
I didn't I didn't know that we didn't seem to, whatever the word was. I didn't know. I landed, I never got a recall from Lawrence, Dana, or anybody at UFC, regarding this matter. And I landed in Phoenix, Arizona, and was told that Dana went out there and called me a scumbag. And I was disappointed to hear that, but I kind of think it's a little bit predictable. I think like I've said before, I think Bob was a perfect nemesis for him, right? Bob would bite the hook, and I think when Dana was young and he had an up and coming sport, he associated the sport of boxing to Bob, who was cantankerous and bombastic, and he said that's bad and I'm good, and that was just convenient for him. Um, I've actually thought I've had a very cordial relationship with Dana. Obviously, I should think twice about that.
Well, when you hear something like that, do you have the kind of relationship where you reach out to clear the air to say that you had nothing to do with this?
Well, I mean, I'm not. What I have nothing to clear the air with, right? I'm not defending him. I think he's the one
No,
who
but
called
he
me a
seems to think
scumbag.
that you guys blocked him. So maybe because of your
Well,
relationship with,
if he would have picked up the phone and called him, it would have been a bit of
right?
one thing, right?
Would you have had
Right?
an
Just
issue
pick up
with it?
the what?
Would you have had an issue with it if he picked up the phone and said, "I want to air this event on ESPN Plus"?
I wouldn't have an issue with it. He picked up the phone and called it and was like, listen, those Dana is really good at being direct and poignant. I mean, and right at you. And if Dana would have picked up the phone and said, "Hey, this is what I'd like to do. What are your thoughts?" I was like, "Great, let me check with my team and let's go through it." And I not necessarily have a problem with it. I think just having dialogue and transparency is a good way to go through and grow the business and keep your relationship strong.
He continues to talk about getting into the boxing business. How do you think he would do if he went full in?
I'm not going to speculate on how he's going to do. I mean, I can just say that, you hear he's going in, then he hears that everybody over there in boxing are losers. They're bustos. They don't know what they're doing. They have no resources. They're all leveraging up for each one night. They don't develop right. I mean, so he great on the sidelines. Um, I think they have an incredible machine in UFC. I think they've whiteboarded an incredible product. And I just because these guys, just because boxers get into a ring and UFC guys get into a ring, the business dynamic is very different. And I look at boxing a lot more like the world of soccer, right? You have La Liga, Bundesliga, you have all these leagues all over the world, and you have boxing that is very similar with content holders and creators all over the world building out products. So I just think it's a different, they may punch each other in the face and they may get knockouts and decisions, but I think it is a different business model, and I think they know that too. But I think they're brilliant at what they do. I think they're terrific.
Would it be fair to say that the business model that they have for the UFC, in your opinion, wouldn't work if tried to be employed in the world of boxing?
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, there's a lot of things that we do in the sport of boxing that they're not obligated to do, right? Disclosure of revenue, all of those things. Our talent costs are a very, very big piece of our business model, and they take up the lion's share, significantly the lion's share of the business model. And I think we just saw a class action lawsuit that was settled by the UFC because their talent costs don't take up. It's a fraction of their revenue model. So I think the business models are different. And I think as a result of them having a different cost basis, they're able to throw an enormous amount of marketing dollars and dollars into growing things that I wish I had on myself. But we don't have that. We don't have the luxury. And we work with fighters and managers every day on creating great opportunities in big events. I think it's a different business model for them, and I think they would adjust, but they're very smart.
Could I ask about Shakur Stevenson? Why ultimately did it not work out with Shakur in Top Rank?
I'm not sure if it, I think things come to an end, right? And I mean, it's no different than if it was, things aren't forever, right? I wish you could say talent stays with you forever. You're like Francis Ngannou didn't stay with UFC forever, right? He decided to move on. Miguel Cotto was with me for a long time. It wasn't forever. I mean, Shakur Stevenson, is a very good fighter. We did a lot of very good events with him, and I think at a certain point, what his asks are and what his needs were and what we felt we wanted to, support, just we were disconnected at that point, and we wish him well and go, right? If that's what you want to do and you want to go get different opportunities out there. But I think this is the story in sports and leagues or ownership. We see this thing go every day, and how guys are going to go into free agency, or they're going to get moved from one team to another. And it's not just isolated to boxing. It's all of sports. It's transactional. And that's hard to believe, and it's hard to get your head wrapped around, but it sets you up and you remind yourself every day of what could happen. And it's not just boxing, it's all of sports.
I don't want to monopolize all your time. If I can just ask you about three of your fighters and you tell me who they're going to fight next, okay?
No, that's not fair.
Why is that not fair?
I don't know. It's just not fair.
Well, maybe you have the answer.
I feel like I'm on a quiz show here.
Well, I'm trying to make this fast.
You're gonna speculate, and then
okay, but then you just
riff a name.
The answer could just be I don't have a name.
Well, I may not have a name either.
No. You could say that. You could say to me you don't have the name. I'm just curious if there's any news on Lomachenko. That's all. You could tell me there is no news.
Oh, well, that's different. I thought you wanted me to say who he was going to fight.
Well, no.
What happens is the minute I say somebody's going to fight somebody, the price goes like up 3x.
Well, maybe there's some news you want to break here. I don't know.
Listen. When I'm ready to break news, we're doing it. We're doing it. I'm ready.
Is there any news to break on Lomachenko?
Let's go over some guys.
Lomachenko?
I'm ready for you now. Let's go. Lomachenko? I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know. I think, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he retired, and I wouldn't be surprised if he fought a couple times more. I'd love to see him back in the ring, but obviously, the keys to that is in his hands.
Teofimo Lopez.
I think we'll see him fight in the first quarter of next year. A lot of good names out there. A lot of good guys out there that he could fight.
We have to.
I love the weight class. I love the weight class.
It has to be
from Tank to Pitbull,
yes,
Haney to Garcia. I think there's just so much good stuff. I mean, he and Keyshawn were talking smack.
Yeah,
So
140.
I just think there's a lot of good stuff out there. Great weight class, very exciting weight class.
Better be of Bivol too. I mean, the IBF is trying to ruin these plans. How do you feel about that being the next one for both of them?
I think it's fine that it would be the next for both of them. But I think, I think one of the things we forget is everybody gets obsessed, completely obsessed with us trying to get an undisputed. And we get this undisputed, and then all of a sudden they forget about the paradigm we have to deal with, right? Once you have undisputed, you have 4 titles and everybody has a mandatory. The next chapter of this thing is how do we figure out a world that you can be undisputed and fight for the undisputed and then keep it, right? It's not isolated only to the IBF because it happened with Tyson Fury and Usyk, right? All of a sudden they had to get rid of the title there. It's very hard to keep all of them. And we need to figure out a good operating system that all of these organizations could be unified in going out there. By the way, who did you have winning that fight? Better be
Sorry. I had Bivol winning. Sorry, better be won. I had.
Did really?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. Why
Really?
did you think your guy won?
I thought Better BF was just more. I thought body language, aggressive down the stretch. I thought he was. I have a predilection to watching the aggressive fighter, and I felt he was the aggressive fighter most of the night.
It was a fantastic fight. I'd love to see it again. I just, and I think the world would love to see it again. And sometimes I feel like the IBF these days, they're ruining our fun. They're making these mandatories. Like.
Well, I mean, I wish I could say I wish I could say yes that's the truth, but the truth is that the IBF was under such strict guidelines from decades ago of issues that they have to stay by their rules, and that's why I think that we need to come together to figure out how can the undisputed guys keep the titles, and how do we rotate in some way, and. I don't have the answer to that, but the good news is we're getting more undisputeds, and I love it.
The Fight Life is on ESPN Plus right now. Couldn't recommend it more. Tremendous watching, 5 episodes, very easy to digest. We look forward to season 2 this Friday, November 8th, Norfolk, Virginia, the biggest fight since the Pernell Whitaker days back in the day. The return of Keyshawn Davis and his brother coming home, the undefeated silver medalist from the Olympic Games. This was a lot of fun, Todd. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. By the way, I've been a huge fan of your show, and I'm so glad that you're doing this new venture and really embracing combat sports, because this is so fantastic for all of the category, and we couldn't have a better person shepherding us through those.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
That means a lot. Thank you. And shout out to Evan Korn over at Top Rank, one of my favorite people. And every time I was doing a move here, as we get more into boxing, he's my sounding board. I hope I'm not outing him here, but he's the guy that I trust.
He's a little snarky, so you better watch.
I like it. I mean,
he's got a little snarkiness to him.
I like it.
I found him because he had this witty tweet. That's how I found him.
Really?
He made this witty tweet about Peter Nelson, who used to be the programmer at HBO.
Yes.
And I laughed at it, and I sent it to Brad Jacobs, who works for it. I said, "This guy's pretty funny." And then I looked at it, and he was from Las Vegas, and he was in the PR business. I'm like, oh my God, let's go get this guy.
You made the right call. I love him. He's great. He's tremendous.
Right.
I didn't know the backstory, but that's amazing stuff.
That's a great one. I was a very funny, snarky tweet.
Congratulations on all your success. Good luck this Friday, and we'd love to have you on in the future again.
All right. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. And it's great riffing with you.
Thank you. Thank you. There he is, the president of Top Rank, Mr. Todd DuBoef. Thanks for watching this video. Hey, before you go, do me a favor, hit that sub button, give us a thumbs up, hit the little bell thingy as well. Leave us a nice comment or two. We appreciate you all very much.